in order to join the joint committee meeting to return to open school committee meeting following the joint meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
Thanks. All in favor, Dinesh?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Carolyn is a yes. Kathleen is absent.
Madam Chair, it's 7:10, and your next item on the agenda is student representatives, and thank you to the students for being so patient and listening in to town politics.
Thank you very much. So I think Malia and Zoe, I will turn it over to you for a student update.
Hi, so we got, we emailed all the principals again, and we got responses from the JCS, the LGN, the Yale, and I believe that was it. So we have from the JCS, I emailed Ms. Fulton, and she said, hi, at JCS, students have been busy working on reading and writing workshops. We are also completing fall assessments and reading and math. Staff and students are grateful for the beautiful weather we've had so far this fall, which has allowed us to go outside for breaks and also for classroom lessons. And for the LGN, Mrs. Luke said that the LGN has been a very busy place the past few weeks. Our flu clinic started today for cohort 1 and will continue tomorrow for cohort 2. Students earned a special reward for filling our Purple Heart bucket as a school. Students earned hearts for being respectful, responsible, and at school. We celebrated with the Norton Pride Day, which we love to hear. And students wore their purple and or Norton gear on October 1st for cohort 1 and October 2nd for cohort 2. And then we have the Yale. And Mr. Gagan said that students continue to do an excellent job of working in school and with their at-home learning, and that they're so proud of everything they've been doing. They're doing an incredible job with keeping their masks on, keeping their distance, and doing all the things we're asking them to do. The Yale PTO Executive Board has met again last week, and they'll have their first full PTO meeting next Wednesday at 7 p.m. through Zoom. He said that they're all just so impressed with all the work that everyone is doing to make sure that their students are learning, are safe, and are happy. Teachers and staff have done a wonderful job, and they hope to keep this going.
We also got some feedback from the Distance Learning Academy. They said that the students have gotten used to the new learning platforms, and they also said that they had a family Q&A, and they answered questions, and they'll be implementing some tweaks to make the program more robust for all the students. For the middle school, although we didn't get it from the principal, we reached out to some of the kids, and they talked about that Mr. Hayward is telling all the kids that if they have any good news or achievements that they can tell him, and he'll announce it to the whole school in the announcements. So it's spreading lots of positivity around the school. For the high school, the seniors had their spirit week. I don't know what it was for after the last school committee meeting, but they had a spirit week, so that was kind of fun to see them all dress up. Soccer and cross country are going well, and they're all wearing masks, which some kids are complaining, some are not, but they're getting used to it. They're just glad they can actually do it. Then we also had the student survey talked about. So a lot of kids voiced their opinions on what they thought about more negative feedback on the remote days. There was, for me personally, I feel like on my remote days, the teachers are assigning a lot more work. So I feel like I'm starting my work at 8 and I'm not done until past dinner time. So I think there's still some things that could be fixed with that, because it's just, they wanna kind of mimic the school day, but I think even in a school day, they might have lesson plans, and they'll be you can't fit this into the schedule today, we'll do it the next day. Well, if you're at home, you can't do that. So I think it's going well overall, but that's just one thing I've noticed.
It's the same kind of for me, where I feel like for the most part, the remote days where I'm home, Tuesdays and Thursdays go fine. They're trying to mimic not a normal school day, but something that can replicate how it would run normally. But I think the biggest issue is the remote Mondays for the high school, because you have classes from around 8 in the morning to 12 in the afternoon-ish. And then you're given the same amount of work you get on a Tuesday or a Thursday, or for the other cohort, a Wednesday or a Friday, to do before 4 o'clock in that span of time. So you're getting sometimes 7 hours of work, 8 hours of work, especially if you're in higher level classes, which is, it's very overwhelming. So you can see that reflected in the student survey that we went over. But other than that, I think everything else is running pretty smoothly there. So could be worse.
I think what we're learning, Zoe and Malia, is really kind of how different this is from what has always been traditional education. And I think the feedback that we've been receiving, so you mentioned that there was a student survey. There's also going to be, there was a meeting on Tuesday night for our fully remote families. There's a meeting next week for our hybrid families. There's also a meeting for our special ed families next week. So we're gathering a lot of data. And there also was a survey that went out to faculty, to staff. So we know that, you know, we're getting a lot of input. I think, Dr. Bayetta, you, I think, would agree that the Tuesday night meeting really offered a lot of insights, really thoughtful suggestions and ideas of how to, you know, take what is happening and maybe kind of tweak it a little bit. I think everybody is also aware, and it's why it's so helpful for us to hear this information, is that we are getting close, believe it or not, to that 6-week mark. We had said when we voted as a school committee to move towards a hybrid model that we were going to absolutely do a really kind of deep dive into how things were going at the 6-week mark, and we are really close to 6 weeks. I'm not sure if anybody realizes that we've been muddling through the sort of process for almost 6 weeks. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes to really think about what's going really well, because there is a lot going really well, and maybe things that maybe we can tweak a little bit, maybe help move forward a little bit. So we do appreciate you being kind of the eyes and ears for your student population, for really letting us know your thoughts about and what you're hearing, and also what students are telling you. So thank you. And it is really nice to see that there are a lot of good things happening. I know it's been crazy wearing masks in school and just being in school so little. It's just one thing after another, but it's so nice. I do drop off at the high school for my daughter. It's just really nice to see kids walking into the building, masks on. I don't see too many kids floundering with their masks. They just put them on and in they go, and it's really nice. And if I had my dreams come true, kids would be in school more, right? Because that's, I think kids really miss it, believe it or not. So not sure, Joe, if you have any comments.
Just really quick, so both Malia and Zoe, that you know, this week I released to Principal Dahlman all of the supplementals, meaning clubs and activities, for teachers to begin to look at how to organize those in a virtual setting, and so that students have other opportunities after school besides the couple of sports that we have right now. So I hope to be hearing from the principal about how those are going to go, so that we can get schedules out to students and get some of those organizations and clubs and activities up and running. Social distancing, probably masks, and probably virtual, but still the idea to get you guys back involved with that stuff.
Anybody? I'm sorry, go ahead, Malia. Sorry, Malia.
It's okay. I think that a lot of teachers and club leaders are definitely trying right now. I see, especially at the high school, they're trying to think of ways to do things outside and do this and do that. And I have some teachers who will lead a class outside. And I have one club leader who has been meeting virtually with us for the past couple of weeks and stuff. And she discusses with us just what we would do if the club was normally there. And,
Right.
we get together and talk about all the craziness going on. I think that's something that should be recognized, because some teachers are trying really hard to make their students feel as comfortable at school during this time, even though nothing's really comfortable, but they're trying,
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Well, thanks, Zoe and Malia. We will really appreciate your updates as we continue to move further and see how things progress. We're all keeping our fingers crossed that after watching the news tonight and hearing that Massachusetts is heading towards becoming fully red again, that we can maybe make some choices that will keep us safe and healthy. So thanks. So on the agenda, there is a area for warrants. Should we do warrants? Okay.
Yes, please.
So, Sherry, I will turn that over to you.
I have reviewed and approved the following warrants: September 25th, 2020, $380,188.50, and October 7th, 2020, $563,879.79. I wish to enter them into public record.
Thanks, Sherry. So, first reading of the district personnel travel policy during COVID-19, Dr. Bayetta?
Thank you. Per the executive order of the governor of Massachusetts, I'm requesting that the committee consider this COVID-19 period only personnel travel policy, which includes that any Massachusetts residents returning home to self-quarantine for 14 days or produce a negative COVID-19 test result that has been administered up to 72 hours prior to their arrival in Massachusetts. This is related to the governor saying that if you're going to a high zone, this is what he's requiring. The exemptions from COVID-19 are low-risk states. They currently include Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, and Connecticut. This does not apply to transitory travel. In other words, a person who lives in Rhode Island but works for us. This does not apply to work or school. This does not apply to patients who have to go to a doctor, including having to go see a loved one. This does not include military, and this does not include critical workers. So those are the exemptions, and those are found right on the link that you can go to. This is not an approval. I am not telling you, yes, you can go somewhere. That's not what this is saying. What this is saying, so nobody's getting an approval from the superintendent to go somewhere. You're simply being told, at least a week's prior would be recommended, that you understand and acknowledge the governor's requirement as you return to work as an employee. And then it has the date of submission, the employee's name, the school, the title, contact number, and then location of travel and projected dates. I recognize that there are emergency situations that happen all of the time. The unfortunate loss of a loved one, in a red state, and so on and so forth. We would, of course, attempt our best to work with any of those types of situations. But again, this is not a permission. This is not an employer or the superintendent trying to tell you what to do. This is simply saying that the governor does have a request in writing. It's actually up to a $500 fine. I don't know how they administer that, but just as a policy from the state. And we're asking the committee to consider utilizing that during the COVID-19 situation.
Is the draft that you gave us, I did review it, is that is that state language?
Yeah, so that's state language, and then it came through the School Committee Association and a bunch of other school districts. Literally everybody's cutting and pasting. We want to make sure that people understand that this is not a permission, that this is literally a actual factual piece of information, because people do come back into a building, and if they are positive or in any situation like that, there's a total impact in the school community. And so that's the real focus here.
Mm-hmm.
And you do not need a vote tonight. This is just your first reading, your second reading. You take the formal vote at your next school committee meeting on the 29th.
Joe, can I ask on that? This seems extremely straightforward and boilerplate. Is there a reason for a second reading? I mean, I would feel pretty comfortable voting tonight, quite frankly.
I would as well.
Yeah, policies require 2 readings so that the public, once they receive it and it's formally out there, they can comment on it and come to you and say, we disagree with this, we don't want this, we don't want that, why are you doing this, and so on. That's the reason why policy is
Fair enough.
Sorry.
So just like situationally, this would be used like if a staff member is traveling to be on vacation or to a conference or something. This isn't like,
Could be for anything. Could be
Okay.
for anything that they're traveling, except for the exemptions that I noted earlier.
okay. That's I was reading it as, well, if they're gonna go to a conference, then we need this, but
Yeah, we're
just wanted to
not,
clarify
right now,
that.
we're not, well, I guess anybody could go to a conference if they want to and take a personal day, but right now, we're not approving conferences, and all the conferences in education are virtual.
All right, that's fine, thank you.
I think a lot of, I don't know, I shouldn't say a lot. I know that some of the safe states don't allow people from Massachusetts into their states. So that's sometimes not even an option to be going to a safe state unless you've quarantined for 2 weeks or quarantined for 7 days with a negative test result. So I'm not sure that, sadly, you don't always even have the option if you're just doing something as kind of a getaway weekend. The safe states might not even be an option
And
for a Massachusetts resident. So.
Right, and for the record, if the governor were to announce a change to the second executive order, I would be coming back to the committee to make that change as well. We're not, again, this is not, we're not trying to overreach ourselves as an employer. We're simply trying to stay as safe as we can by simply knowing where people are if in fact they're following the governor's order.
Mm-hmm. Well taken. We will definitely, we will review this again at our next school committee meeting. Perfect, thank you. We'll move on to the discussion and vote on superintendent's goals.
So again, this is per boilerplate that we normally do. There's only one change that was a typo and it was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
That is under goal number 1. The action item there is for October 30th.
Right.
But to let you know, we've met that deadline already. I just gave ourselves the 30. We actually came to an agreement this week. So, but if you could just note that it's October 30th. And the second change was the goal number 4 with an October 30th. And I'm releasing information tomorrow to the staff to consider and reaching out to some folks, including the school committee for the task force. So I just need a motion and a vote.
So is there a motion to approve the current superintendent goals as written?
So move.
Second?
Second,
All in favor, Dinesh,
Yes.
Sherry,
yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and Carolyn's a yes.
Thank you.
Review and vote on coach's handbook. Aaron?
Yeah, so we began this process, which seems like a year ago, and back in January of last year, I know school committee, Dr. Baeta, we wanted myself and Ethan to put together basically a coach's handbook that drew from the Portrait of a Graduate, how we looked at fundamentally how we would look at coaching, but it also took from the MIA handbook, our athletic handbook. We kind of combined all 3 of those things to put together what we think is a robust but not overwhelming coach's handbook that really puts the emphasis on coaching through more of an educational lens than just being out there as a coach and trying to win all the time. More like, how are we going to build the whole student?
So that, Madam Chair, through you to the rest of the committee, the intent here, and I just want to add a couple of things. The intent here is a clear communication of expectations, if you will, in terms of what our goals and philosophy is. This is not an evaluation. That is a different process that the school committee and the NTA will be working on as part of a negotiable situation during negotiations. Both sides have actually already talked about that prior to COVID coming into play and taking a bunch of things off the table and coming to a 1-year agreement. We'll be coming back to the table of which Mr. Savas and Ms. Gallagher, you both are members of. So this is like an employee handbook where you can go, what our philosophy is, how we want to make sure that communication and the hierarchy and the triangulation of that is important. Coaches know where they can go when they feel that they're being stressed by a situation or vice versa. And also a way for addressing complaints before they become what I would call big ticket items, no different than what happens in the classroom. You don't go to the superintendent or the building principal. I should say you shouldn't go to the superintendent or the building principal about a complaint about your child in the classroom. You should go directly to the teacher and offer, hey, I'm not happy with X, Y, and Z. Then you go to an assistant principal or principal. Then you go potentially to my office, which, as you all know, does not happen very often. But I think the last part of it is to really brand a philosophy of what we want to do, especially because of our attachment to SEL and the portrait of a graduate. That, you know, the idea of coaching is the same definition in many ways as teaching. There is not much of a difference in that definition, in my opinion. I've actually used the idea of coaching in the classroom, and we actually have coaches who work for us helping teachers in the classroom. You know, a digital learning specialist is potentially a coach. They're there to help our teachers become better at instructional technology. Our reading folks, our literacy specialists, they're there to help the adults who then turn around and help the students. So it's the same philosophy here. There's no hidden agenda in this. It's straightforward. And then the other process will take place as part of a totally negotiable situation that both sides know has to happen in that format. It does require a vote of the school committee.
Sure. Before we vote, I just wanted to make a comment. So Aaron, I know that you worked a lot on this handbook at the request of Norton as a SEL district. And certainly I worked with you. You were really very gracious to kind of hear the kind of thoughts about how we can take our SEL philosophy onto the athletic fields and complexes, and really just think about it's not just about the wins, although those are really nice. It's about the whole child, right? So if I'm not mistaken, Aaron, and maybe you could confirm, I know that you kind of made some drafts. I know that we had our eyes on drafts. I know that I was able to see some drafts. I think that the drafts were sent out to numerous people in the community. Is that correct? In regards to staff and to school committee. So this was not, you know, I just want to make sure everybody knows this was not Aaron doing this without any input from others. It was really, I think, a really nice collaborative effort. Using other handbooks, I know you reached out to a lot of different districts to kind of get a sense of what are other districts doing, what's working, what's not working. So I really appreciate your time and energy on this. I'm not sure if anybody else has any comments or.
I just had a couple of questions. Aaron, again, I just want to say too, thank you for all your work on this. I know you and I have talked since probably you've become AD about some of this stuff. So to see all the work and effort you put in is greatly appreciated. Just to clarify, that this is the first time that we have something like this, as thorough as this. Okay. If it voted on tonight, this goes into effect for the next season of sports, would you say?
Yeah, I would say it would be the next season, which would be November 30th.
Okay. And this is something that all coaches have to sign every year?
Yeah, they would sign it at the coaches meeting before the season started.
Okay, perfect.
Sherry, also, so that you know, and the rest of the committee, you know, anything to do with the word handbook is always a working document. So there's changes, additional language, deletion of language, update on XYZ. So just, you know, like all our handbooks that we do, it's done, and it'll become a yearly event. So like we always do, we'll review it in June, request the school committee. There's no changes to the handbook. Great. We just change the title to the next season and we move on. And I agree, Carolyn, to your comment. You know, Aaron gets pulled in 20,000 different directions right now. So to get this done with the support of Ethan, those coaches who decided to comment on it, and again, they can continue to comment on it. This is a document that is always ever changing. We'll start, and then when the time period comes to change again, we'll go through that process.
And to that point, I mean, I met with a coach today, and we sat down and discussed a few things in their language. And then I talked to him about, at the end of the year, let's sit down, be part of the group that sits down and goes over the athletic handbook and the coach's handbook and go through it. I mean, the more coaches input we have in it, the better it's going to be. So I welcome that from anybody.
It sounds great. Because this is a vote, if I'm not mistaken, sorry, Dinesh, go ahead.
So I have just a couple of comments. The first one, while it might sound silly or nitpicky, I think we want to highlight early on in this somewhere that the term coaches refers to anybody in that type of position, coaches, assistant coaches, or I don't know what you'd call it, an unstipend volunteer or something like that.
Yep.
I'd like to highlight that it applies across the board to anybody that's in that type of position. And the second thing I wanted to highlight on page 7, when we're talking about the activity of boosters, I think, and I may have these facts wrong, but I believe there was a point at some moment in our past where we had those unstipend volunteers who were actually getting compensation from boosters, and that simply can't happen. So I think we need to highlight in there that there can't be any form of compensation given from boosters to coaches, assistant coaches, or unstipend volunteers, whatever the phrases we want to use.
Yeah, so to address that, that's a great point. The volunteer coaches receive from me a letter of, quote, congratulations and appointment as a volunteer. We do that for 2 reasons. A, it protects them as an employee, and B, it protects us as an employer. When you get a letter that you're a volunteer, you shouldn't be receiving compensation from anybody. If somebody wants to take you out for a drink or something, that's totally different, but we shouldn't be.
I'm talking about within reason. I don't care if they go out for a drink with people, but I think it should be codified. I think it should be in here that they're not allowed to receive any compensation outside of the occasional social drink or whatever. I mean,
Right.
If they want to have a pancake breakfast, go ahead. I mean, we're not idiots, but at the same time, there can't be hey, we're slipping this guy $500 for coaching. You just can't have that connection.
Mm-hmm. So Dinesh, are you thinking that it should be written
I think it should
in the
go.
handbook?
Yeah, 100%. I think it has to be.
So there's 2 amendments to the written. The first amendment, as noted, both noted by Dinesh, to clarify and codify assistant coaches and volunteer coaches that are recognized. And then 2, to codify that the idea behind volunteer coaches within the district is that they are not compensated by any parties associated with Norton Public Schools.
Right. And surprising nobody, there's a potential third adjustment as well. And this is more of a question. I would welcome people's thoughts on this. So the conflict resolution ends at the AD and the principal. And Aaron, I don't mean this with any kind of, I don't mean with any malice towards you or anything like that, but
That's fine.
I would think that in a normal situation, the AD and the principal are in a fairly close relationship. They work very close together on an ongoing basis. I wonder if we want to allow for another step beyond that, if there is still no resolution to the student or student's parents' liking to that point. And I'm not saying that we have to. I'm saying, what do you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be 2 responses to that. The first response.
Yes and no.
Well, I might be opining on this in the future, so I don't want to commit myself to the politics of this answer. I've been listening to that all week. Any situation that happens with an in-house appointed coach, in-house meaning a member of the Norton Teachers Association, will require the rights under the contract. If in fact it's a accusation of some sort or needing to come to a resolution, that would go through a process in itself. That's happened actually in the past.
Joe, can you give what's an example of?
An example would be that there was a yelling and screaming situation between a coach and a player. It was found that the complaint came forward, and Aaron has to look into the complaint. He looks into that complaint, and he has to give that coach, because there's the potential for disciplinary action, rights under the contract. So he has the hearing. In most cases, he would have the hearing along with the principal, because the principal still oversees the entire school and everybody who's employed under ed reform. That principal says, I've made my hearing, I've spoken to my AD, I gave due process rights, including union representation, if they so choose, and I am X. I'm suspending the coach, I'm terminating the coach. That automatically would kick up to my level. That would go to the next level in the process. That level in the process is I give the employee all of their rights and so on and so forth. And after that hearing of giving them the secondary hearing, because let's say it was a termination, then they can take it actually from me to you. And from there, the potential to arbitration. That's the process.
Okay, what about the other way where?
The other way is employees, staff that do not work for us. They are employees at will.
What I mean by that is, if the conflict is the resolution is not to the parent or the student's satisfaction. So it's not an issue where we're going to terminate somebody, but there's some conflict. And honestly, I don't know if Aaron has thoughts on this, but I don't know what that conflict might be. But I'm just thinking we should allow for the possibility that it gets to a point where they say, okay, this has not been resolved to my satisfaction. And I'm not saying that it has to go their way, but that they say, you know what, I still don't feel like I'm getting a fair trial, if you will, with the
any parent at any point can take an employee to court. That employee would be, they could go that process, but the process pretty much ends either with the superintendent on a decision of an employee at will, or in the process of arbitration, with if in fact they were challenging that they didn't like the decision that I went along with the parents' comment.
Right. So, and I very much could be overthinking this, but I'm trying to think of a good example where there would be a conflict that would kind of get kicked up to the level of the AD and the principal that would not go the way of the student/parents, but would still be something that we may want to adjudicate, for lack of a better term.
There have been court injunctions that have been done against school systems by parents as a way to stop an action of the administration.
Okay.
That has happened. It's actually happened in the wonderful sport of hockey, quite a number of times, actually, in my days of coaching.
You know those hockey moms, right, Sherry?
So
Yeah.
it would be very much in the same way with the employee who works for us as if it was in the classroom. It's a process that will give them union rights, that will go through that process. And at some point, the parent is no longer involved in the decision, because the decision, if disciplinary, is in fact private under the law. So, for example, if I put somebody out on paid administrative leave, people automatically think somebody got fired. That may not be so. That may be that something's being investigated, and those people are still getting compensated and so on, and somebody else is doing the job. So the process for a parent wanting to get the answer that they want may not actually ever be known to them unless they decide as a parent to take it through a court process.
Okay, I think I'm probably overthinking this, and in any case, it shouldn't stop the handbook from going forward. It's a good piece of work in general. So I'll drop that last part, but the other two things I think we should include.
And Dinesh, I mean, to speak to that, there's definitely parents who, I've been reached by a number of parents when things have happened. So I think that, and Aaron knows that parents definitely come to school committee members, whether they're friends of yours or whatever, they just need somebody to vent to or talk to. It definitely happens now. There's no doubt.
And I don't want to open it up to, hey, my kid's not getting enough playing time, I want to kick it up to the school committee. I want it to be something legitimate, but I think probably right now the move is probably to move forward without it. And we can just kind of table it and think about it. And like you said, it's a working document. It's not something we can't come and revisit at a later date. So
I think something too, Dinesh, that has happened more, and again, I really think that we had talked about this when we did Dr. Bayetta's evaluation, that I feel like he just kind of puts people, the right people in the right places to really, in Norton, to be really wise and successful without sort of a really lot of money in our district. And I think really focusing on the athletic director position was important. And for a long time, that was kind of a band-aided position. It was just putting somebody in there to kind of do the sort of initial work or the necessary work, but really not do the job. And I think, Aaron, when you came on board, I really do feel like as an athletic director, you are present, you are at athletic events, families see you, you engage with our student athletes. And I do think from my own personal experience and hearing from others that you are sort of you're able to hear parents' concerns much more quickly and readily than years past. And I think in a lot of ways, Dinesh, that has really kind of diffused a lot of the concerns that we used to hear from parents.
Right,
Because
I fully understand that, and this is not an Aaron situation. I think Aaron's great, I absolutely love the guy, but at the same time.
we're patting you on the back, Aaron. Can you feel them?
Right, but and again, I do want to move forward without this, kind of rehashing this, because I think it's probably something to talk about later. But at the same time, when we're reviewing these documents, we need to think about not just today but tomorrow. The Red Sox could call Aaron tonight and say, "Hey, you're our new manager if you want the job."
Right.
Joe
Totally get it.
Joe will tell you they stunk this year. They may want to look to make a change. They call Aaron and say, "Come on over. You're it," and he leaves tomorrow.
Coming.
So.
Aaron would never leave us for them. Come on.
But you got to remember when you're looking at these documents and you're thinking about these things, it's not simply, okay, how would we adjudicate in the situations that we're in right now with the people we have right now? It's kind of while it's a working document, you want to think about it as a forever document. Say, okay, what happens, next year, the year after? The players may change, quite frankly. So
Totally get it.
we can move on. I think it's.
I want to just clarify one thing. Joe, in your example, and I know it was just that an example, but if there's an issue with a coach, that review is only for their coaching position, not so much their employment as a whole, for depending on what the issue is, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I
would say if it's the employment issue, that would go directly to you, bypassing the principals.
No, it still starts with your direct supervisor.
Okay.
Unless it's a situation, for example, of,
hurting a player or something like that? Or?
like the inappropriate situation, then those usually come directly to me.
Okay.
Just to end with two thoughts. First, the idea behind this document is the positivity of what it is to be and what we expect and want our philosophy of athletes, and in this particular case, our coaches. I think the second part is one of the things that I've always been critical of, as the committee knows, is this kind of generalization of something not going the way somebody wants to happen. This begins the process as if it was in the classroom. You need specification. People need to be told, I'm not happy about A, B, and C. Playing time is usually connected to that discussion. Or the way somebody was treated or yelled at and screamed, or any of that type of stuff. It needs to be a direct act between the student athlete and the coach, the student athlete, parent, coach, and the AD, and then if it needs to kick up, it kicks up to the principal's office. That should always be the process in anything that we do. In the same way, like I said earlier, parent, student to, you hope at the high school level, I would hope at the high school level anyways, that a student is going to see their teacher and saying, I really don't understand why you marked this wrong, or I really, X, Y, Z. Then it maybe becomes a parent issue, maybe then it becomes an administrative issue. I'll leave it at that. But it is a good starting working document.
I agree. I think it's a really good start. And thanks, Aaron, for kind of putting it together. Thanks for sending it out for comments. It sounds like you had sent it out to our coaches for comments too. we really want to make this inclusive so that everybody kind of has interest in it. So thanks for doing that. Because this is a vote, I will open it up to our attendees. Not sure if anybody has any comments or questions before we vote on this, if you wanted to write it in the Q&A.
We don't have any questions, Madam Chair. We have Peter Wiggins with 2 comments, and Peter just says that our Norton has some great coaches. They are doing a good job teaching the students right and wrong, and they are doing a good job, and I've seen them on the field lots of times. And then later he commented that, Mr. Summer, you've done a great job as AD for the Lancers, and thank you for the media pass for me to cover the games on the Peter channel. That was a great idea, by the way. Thank you for doing that, Aaron.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Peter.
For us.
So we can motion to vote. So we are voting with the
2 amendments.
changes, with the
The 2 noted
amendments.
amendments. Yep.
as stated.
Yep.
Is there a motion to approve the coach's handbook with the amendments as stated? As
So
changed?
moved.
Second? Thanks. All in favor, Dan?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dinesh?
Yes.
And Carolyn's a yes. Thanks. We will move on to the discussion and vote on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which is November 25th, 2020, a full day or early release.
Madam Chair, at this time, the calendar isn't clear, so I'd like, as you know, the school calendar is connected to a decision you folks make. My recommendation is that Monday would be a remote day currently. The Tuesday would be the Tuesday-Thursday students, meaning they don't have school on Thursday. And Wednesday would be the Wednesday-Friday. So I'm recommending that Wednesday before Thanksgiving be a full day for the district.
Mhm. Any comments, questions, discussions? Are we seeing any comments from attendees? Seeing none, I'm ready to vote. So is there a motion to approve the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, November 25th, as a full day?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Dan?
Aye.
Sherry?
Yes.
Dinesh?
No, give him a half day.
And Carolyn is a yes.
Malia,
Thank you guys, man.
I know why he voted, Malia. Good job.
Emily, I tried.
Malia, I tried so hard for you.
It was a
That
solid
is
effort.
awful. Malia, that is bad politics. That's what we
I'm
need.
on the record.
That's what we need to stop in DC. He was bought out.
He did try for you, Malia. We are going to move on to the vote to move the October 22nd, 2020 school committee meeting to October 29th, 2020. Dr. Bayetta.
Yes, just a recommendation, since we're meeting this week, that gives us information to be received by you by Monday afternoon prior to the school committee meeting of all the data points that we're looking at. The NTA will hopefully be able to share teacher survey with us. We have the parent meetings, we have the parent surveys. In the parent meetings would be the digital learning, the academy, the hybrid, and our special education 504 families. And also a bulleted line item from every department director and the principals as well on the models, and specifically for Marty and Jen on the Digital Learning Academy. So that will get everybody data. We meet on the 29th. We will probably not have too many other items on that except for a second reading of that policy.
And I think it really does align with the date of our 6 weeks. We seriously are going to have a deep discussion about sort of where we're at. We'll continue to watch our numbers. I want to do a quick shout out to Christian Zahner, who is the Board of Health agent in Norton. He's been really helpful. And Sherry, I know you've been working with him a lot, but really keeping us up to date on our numbers and where we're at in Norton. So, but we will have that discussion. So any comments or questions about moving our school committee meeting to October 29th? Seeing none?
Joe, I just want to mention real quick, and just an FYI with Christian, I did talk with him tonight. He is going to start to share the information that he sends to us, to Facebook, because there's been a lot of, comments on there that, you know, people think it's the kids in schools that's causing the uptick in Norton, or it's Wheaton College that is, and that is in case, that is not accurate information. So, you know, the spreadsheet that I have created and share with you guys every week, you know, it shows week to week, and Christian thinks that it coming from him on Facebook would be a good option. So starting on Monday, he will share that on Facebook, and then we can share it to other sites as well. He'll do it through the Norton Alert Facebook page. And Joe, it would be helpful, I think, if there was, you know, really just that on the 29th, because I do think that's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, it would be
You know,
that. I just want to do that in the second reading. That's all.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just hoping there's not a whole lot more, so we can really focus on, you know, how we move forward.
Great if we could start at 6. It's still 6:30, but I don't know if that's a problem for Dinesh. He's usually the one that's.
No, that actually works for me fine, yeah.
So we'll publish it at 6 o'clock. So we just need a moment.
It would have been more of an issue if I was still going to Boston, but working from home, I could potentially do it earlier than that, to be honest with you.
Okay, 6 I think is good. Gives people time.
So we vote, so is there a motion to vote to move the October 22nd school committee meeting to October 29, 2020 with a 6 p.m. start?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All in favor? Dan?
Yes.
Dinesh?
yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And Carolyn's a yes. Dr. Byetta, any other business?
I do. I'd like to turn it over to Matt for a very simple announcement and my gratitude to what he's announcing tonight.
Hi, thank you. So we have received a generous $2,000 donation from the Kyle Bishop Memorial Fund. These funds will be used to offset fees for students who are struggling to pay those fees. So we have received that, and we're going to put that to good use moving forward.
Shout out to Steve, who actually sent me a text message and just said, is there anything that you guys really need? And I said, well, here's the uptick that we're seeing working with Vinnie Searcy. We're seeing some kids that the SATs and the APs and this and that. And we talked about less money than this. And then just a sincere thank you to Steve Bishop and sending that on behalf of his son.
Steve's a great guy. It's a great fundraiser, and you know, this is a great way for all of us to just take a minute and remember his son. Steve does a lot for kids in this community.
There's no doubt. So thank you on behalf of all of our students. Really appreciate that. I think in these moments of kind of craziness, it's so nice to know that there are people who really want to continue to support our students who are also struggling. So thank you.
But I just want to actually say as well, I actually talked to Steve on the day of the golf tournament. And what's impressive is they had this pretty much scale back the tournament. So it's very appreciative that he could still find some funds to donate. Because that tournament, I believe, was back in July, if I might be incorrect. But talking to him on the day of, it was pretty sporadic and they couldn't do a lot. So I definitely appreciate still being able to get back. So it's well appreciated.
That's great.
I have nothing else, Madam Chair.
I just wanted to add one thing. We had our, and I don't even know what President Hanno calls it,
It's the Wheaton Community Council.
the Wheaton Community Council. So we were able to check in with President Hanno at Wheaton College, and Dr. Byetta was on the call. I was on the call. And I do have to say that they are just an impressive college, that they really are on top of their plan for COVID sort of safety. They have, and please correct me, I'm sure Dr. Byetta, you'll be able to correct me if I'm not mistaken, they had one positive student and one student who was on isolation, if I'm not mistaken. They had one positive faculty member or staff member, and then one positive that actually turned out to be a false positive.
Right.
So it is, I want to sort of put that out there. It is not Wheaton College that is driving the numbers of COVID up in Norton. They are getting tested twice a week. If I'm not mistaken, it's faculty, staff, and students twice a week. So they are really being cautious, and their students have been impressive. Really, if we, I don't know about anybody else, but I see them around town. They're always wearing masks. Even if they're walking alone on the sidewalk in front of the campus, they have masks on. It's been nice to see how engaged as a community they are to really keep their community safe and keep their students on campus. So just wanted to make sure I said that. Dr. Hanno is really an engaged community member in Norton, and he really did pull together a nice team of people in Norton to have a conversation with. So it was appreciated. But I have nothing else. Anyone? Dinesh is against full days before Thanksgiving.
Power.
So
If it wasn't during COVID times, I would have agreed with you, Jeanette.
I think I would agree as well. We need our kids in school. We need them in school. Is there a motion to adjourn our school committee for October 15th?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor, Dan,
Yes.
Dinesh,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So thanks, everybody. We will see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, everybody. Good night, everybody.